In a quiet, sun-faded suburb of Ohio, an old, two-story colonial house stood wrapped in a heavy, suffocating silence. Inside lived 65-year-old Arthur Miller. Every single morning, long before the rest of the neighborhood woke up, Arthur would brew a single mug of black coffee with trembling hands. He would carry it out to the front porch and take his seat on a weathered wooden rocking chair. That chair had become his only loyal companion. His snow-white hair, the deep lines carved into his face, and the profound emptiness in his hazel eyes narrated a story of immense sorrow, a grief he had buried deep within his chest for years. His gaze remained permanently fixed on the empty driveway and the mailbox at the end of the lawn, desperately hoping that a car would pull up or a letter would arrive from his children. But all that ever came was the morning breeze, rustling the fallen maple leaves before passing by. Arthur was the father of 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. To raise them, he had sacrificed his youth, his physical health, and every single penny of his hard-earned savings. After his wife passed away when the kids were still young, Arthur worked a grueling factory job by day and took on exhausting night shifts at a local warehouse. He did everything to ensure his family never missed out on the American dream. He wore faded, thrifted clothes and choked down his own needs so his children could attend top-tier universities and participate in every sports league and summer camp. Returning home late at night, utterly broken by physical exhaustion, the mere sight of his children sleeping peacefully in their beds would wash away his pain. He would smile in the dark, genuinely believing he was building an unbreakable, loving family that would stand by him when his hair turned gray. As time marched on, the children grew up, graduated, and gradually drifted into fast-paced worlds of their own, leaving Arthur behind. His eldest son, David, moved to New York City, completely consumed by the high-stakes world of Wall Street finance. His younger son, Robert, climbed the corporate ladder in Silicon Valley, securing a high-paying executive position at a major tech firm. His daughter, Chloe, married a wealthy real estate developer and moved into a gated community in Miami. After the children left, Arthur was stranded entirely alone in that massive, empty family home. In the beginning, the children would call on Sundays, but those calls soon dwindled into brief, rushed text messages on holidays. Eventually, months would turn into seasons, and the old smartphone on Arthur's bedside table remained hauntingly silent, receiving nothing but automated weather alerts. With nothing left but fading memories, Arthur spent his sleepless nights wandering through the dark, empty bedrooms of his children. He would gently touch their dusty high school trophies, their old yearbooks, and the framed family photographs hanging along the hallway, weeping bitterly in the dark. He constantly questioned himself, wondering where he had failed as a father, and why his own flesh and blood could not spare even 5 minutes of their week to check if he was still breathing. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas, he would foolishly buy a small turkey and decorate the living room, hoping against hope that one of them would surprise him. But every holiday ended exactly the same way, sitting alone at the kitchen island, eating a microwave dinner in silence, while the festive music and joyous laughter echoing from the neighbors' homes tore his heart to pieces. One suffocating winter evening, a severe blizzard hit the town, and Arthur's health took a drastic, terrifying turn. Burning with a severe fever and lacking the strength to even stand up from the floor, he dialed David's number with shaking fingers. The phone rang for a long time before David answered, his voice dripping with pure annoyance. "Dad, you know I'm right in the middle of a market opening, and my schedule is packed today. Why do you keep calling out of nowhere and disrupting my meetings?" Arthur opened his dry mouth to tell his son that he couldn't breathe, but before he could squeeze out a single word, David snapped. "Look, I'll FaceTime you this weekend, okay?" and disconnected the line. That weekend call never came, and the phone slipped from the old man's weak grasp, clattering onto the cold hardwood floor. Summoning the last ounce of his fading energy, Arthur dialed his younger son, Robert. This time, his daughter-in-law answered the phone, her voice cold, transactional, and completely detached. "Arthur, Robert is incredibly stressed with a new software launch right now. And honestly, every time you call, you just complain about being lonely. We automatic deposit money into your account every single month for your expenses and healthcare, don't we? What else do you possibly need from us?" Those sharp words stabbed through Arthur's heart like a rusted dagger. He wept silently in the dark, wondering if a father, in his final vulnerable years, required nothing more than a digital bank transfer. Did his children truly believe that money could replace the warmth of a son's voice or the comfort of a child's embrace during a storm? Desperate for a sliver of humanity, he decided to call his daughter Chloe, the girl who used to be his pampered little princess, the one who used to tie her drawings to his lunchbox and promise she would take care of him forever. When Chloe answered, Arthur was already sobbing openly into the receiver. "Chloe, my sweet girl, my health is completely failing me. Please, can you come down to see me? Just for a weekend?" Chloe sighed heavily into the phone and replied, "Dad, you know how crazy my social schedule is here, and the kids have their tennis championships this weekend. It's physically impossible for me to fly out. Just call emergency services, or ask one of the neighbors to drive you to the clinic." Chloe's dismissive, clinical response completely shattered the final piece of Arthur's spirit. An elderly neighbor named Thomas, who lived across the street, had noticed that Arthur's driveway hadn't been shoveled, and that no lights had been turned on in the house for 2 days. Worried, Thomas used his spare key to enter the house and found Arthur collapsed on the living room rug, semi-conscious and shivering. Thomas immediately called paramedics, who rushed Arthur to the county hospital. The doctors delivered a grim diagnosis to Thomas. Arthur's heart was actively failing, a condition severely accelerated by acute psychological trauma, deep depression, and absolute social isolation. Panicked, Thomas called both sons and Chloe, pleading with them to book the first flight to Ohio because their father was rapidly running out of time. Instead of rushing to the airport, David and Robert called the attending physician's desk from their comfortable offices. "Doctor, spare no expense. Put him in the best private room, use the most advanced treatments, and send the bills directly to our corporate cards. But taking time off work and flying out on such short notice is practically impossible for us right now." When Thomas gently conveyed this cold reality to Arthur, a bitter, heartbreaking smile appeared on the old man's pale face. He squeezed Thomas's hand with what little strength he had left and whispered, "My friend, the children who could not hold my hand while I was alive will only come to put on a show for the funeral. I have no expectations left." Arthur spent his final night on Earth in that sterile, freezing hospital room, staring intently at the ceiling, completely alone. The next morning, as the first ray of winter sunlight pierced through the hospital window blinds, Arthur's soul quietly departed from this world. Tragically, his eyes remained wide open, staring fixedly at the hospital room door, as if he was waiting for someone he loved to walk through it until his very last breath. Thomas broke the news of his demise to the family. 2 days later, David, Robert, and Chloe arrived in the small Ohio town. They spared no expense for the funeral, hiring a luxury funeral home, buying an incredibly expensive mahogany casket, and putting on a massive, tearful display of grief in front of the townspeople. But every single neighbor attending the service knew it was nothing but a shameful charade. The father who had starved for just 2 sweet words of affection during his life was now being showered with expensive flowers and a grand marble tombstone. Following the burial, the children returned to the empty colonial house to catalog the estate and divide Arthur's property. While searching through his old wooden desk in the study, they stumbled upon a worn-out, leather-bound journal where Arthur had recorded the silent agony of his final years. On the very last page, written in shaky, uneven handwriting, were his final words. "I taught my children how to take their very first steps, but the moment they stood firmly on their own feet, they pushed me entirely out of their lives. I taught them how to speak their first words, but the moment they found their success, they stopped talking to me. May God bless my children with prosperity, but I pray they never have to endure the haunting, freezing loneliness they gave to me as a parting gift." Reading those raw words, the sons and daughter bowed their heads in overwhelming, suffocating shame. But the realization came too late. They had traded the most precious blessing of life for corporate status, leaving them with nothing but an eternity of unredeemable guilt